Prince Demchugdongrub, commonly known as Prince Wang, was the leader of an independence movement in Inner Mongolia. He was the chairman of Mengjiang, a Japanese puppet state in World War II. Some see Demchugdongrub as a Mongol nationalist promoting Pan-Mongolism, while others view him as a traitor and as the pawn of the Japanese during World War II. Early life. A Chafar born into the plain white banner in Chafar province of the Qing dynasty, Demchugdongrub was the sole son of Namgyal Wang, the duo Wang of Right banner and chief of the Zilingal League. His name consists of the Tibetan words Chakrazamvara and Siddhartha, respectively. After Namgyal Wangchuk died in 1908, the 6-year-old Demchugdongrub, with the approval of the king, inherited one of his father's titles, the duo Wang. In his youth, Demchugdongrub studied the Mongolian, Chinese, and Manchu languages. After the fall of the king, Yuan Shikai promoted Demchugdongrub to the title of Jizar Hesho Dulingjinong in 1912. Demchugdongrub married a daughter of a Taiji nobleman from his own Right banner, and the next year had the first child, Dilgorshun. Several years later, Demchugdongrub had 4 more sons and 1 daughter with his second wife, Fujin, a daughter of another Taiji nobleman from the Abega banner. Early political activities. Demchugdongrub was appointed as a member of the Chafar Provincial Committee in 1929. In 1931 he succeeded to the post of the chief of the Zilingal League after Yankang and Sodnom Rabdan. During September 1933, the Mongolian princes of Chafar province and Sui Yuan traveled to the temple at Bailing Miao north of Glawar and gathered in a council chamber with Demchugdongrub, who for months had been trying to found a Pan-Mongolian self-rule movement. In mid-October, despite the traditional suspicions of one another, they and Demchugdongrub agreed to draw up confederation documents for the Inner Mongolian banners. They sent word to Nanjing that they intended to rule Inner Mongolia themselves. They indicated that if they were obstructed by the Chinese government, that they would not hesitate to seek assistance from Japan. In response, Nanjing sent Wang Shaoong as an envoy, who in the end authorized the creation of the Mongol Local Autonomy Political Affairs Committee. Collaboration with the Japanese. In 1935, Demchugdongrub, now the leader of the Mongols of Inner Mongolia, made serious efforts to set up an autonomous Mongolian government in Chafar and Sui Yuan. The Japanese General Jiro Minami, commander of the Kwantung Army, and Colonel Shiro Itagaki gave support to the new Inner Mongolian autonomous government, which they felt would weaken China and be subject to the influence of Japan. In April 1935, Minami sent Major Yukichi Tanaka and another officer to interview Demchugdongrub with the goal of formalizing Japanese support, but Demchugdongrub did not agree to terms set by the Japanese at the time. After establishing a ceremonial Mengjiang-Manchukuo alliance in May 1935, we honored Demchugdongrub with the title of Martial Virtue Prince of the First Rank. In June 1935, the North Chafar incident and the resulting Chindoihara agreement substantially affected events in Chafar province. The most important provisions of the Chindoihara agreement forced all units of the Chinese 29th Army to be withdrawn from the eastern districts of Chafar province and north of Changpai, including the 132nd Division in Changpai. The withdrawal of the 132nd Division effectively ceded control of nearly all of Chafar province in Mengjiang. Peace and order in Chafar was to be entrusted to the Peace Preservation Corps, an organization that was little more than a police force with light arms only. Also, no Chinese were to be permitted to migrate to settle in the northern part of Chafar province, which was largely populated by nomadic Mongols. No activities of the Kuomintang were to be permitted in Chafha province. All anti-Japanese institutions and official acts in Chafha province were banned. When General Minami met with Prince Demchugdongrub in August 1935, the prince promised close cooperation with Japan, and Minami promised financial assistance to the prince. Expansion into Chafha. On 24 December 1935, General Minami sent 2 battalions of irregular Manchurian cavalry under Li Shoksan, a squadron of Japanese planes, and a few tanks to assist the prince in taking over the northern part of Chafha province. The 6 districts of northern Chafha were defended by only a few thousand lightly armed Chinese Peace Preservation Corps. With Li's assistance, the prince's forces were soon able to overrun the area. The Japanese Kwantung Army, in February 1936, decided to establish the Mongol military government, with Demchugdongrub as the commander and Toyonori Yamauchi as the advisor. The Japanese proclaimed that Demchugdongrub on a mission to inherit the great spirit of Genghis Khan and retake the territories that belonged to Mongolia, completing the grand task of reviving the prosperity of the nationality. Expansion into Suiyuan. In March 1936, Manchukuo troops occupying Chafha province invaded northeastern Suiyuan, which was controlled by the Shanxi warlord Yan Zishan. These Japanese-aligned troops seized Bailing Miao in northern Suiyuan, where the pro-Japanese Inner Mongolian Autonomous Political Council maintained its headquarters. 3 months later, Demchugdongrub, as the head of the political council, declared that he was the ruler of an independent Mongolia, and organized an army with the aid of Japanese equipment and training. On 21 to 26 April 1936, Demchugdongrub and Li Shoksan met with the Japanese Special Service Chief Captain Takayoshi Tanaka at West Wachumuzan. Representatives from places in Inner Mongolia, Qinghai and Mongolia also attended the meeting, which was called the State Founding Conference. A plan was drawn up to create a Mongolian state which would include all of Mongolia and Qinghai. It was to be a monarchy, but would initially be run by an interim committee. A Mongolian Congress was planned, and most importantly, there was a plan to organize a Mongolian military government and an army. The Mongol military government was formed on 12 May 1936. A mutual assistance agreement with Manchukuo was also concluded in July 1936, with Japan providing military and economic aid. After the conclusion of the treaty, Demchugdongrub set out to enlarge and equip the Inner Mongolian army for the expansion of his new state into Suiyuan. The prince increased his army from 3 cavalry divisions to 9 with the aid of Takayoshi Tanaka and his Japanese advisors. The Japanese provided arms captured from the northeastern army, but Tanaka ignored the advice of the Mongolian leaders and recruited poorly armed levies and ex-bandits from various regions. Because it had no ideological unity, poor training, and only enough rifles for half of the soldiers, this force had poor morale and cohesion. It totaled about 10,000 men. A puppet Chinese army, the Grand Han Righteous Army under Wang was attached to Demchugdongrub's Inner Mongolian army. Conflict with Yan Zishan. In August 1936, Demchugdongrub's army attempted to invade eastern Suiyuan, but it was defeated by Yan Zishan's forces under the command of Fu Zawaya. Following this defeat, Demchugdongrub rebuilt his armed forces and planned another invasion. Japanese agents carefully sketched and photographed Suiyuan's defenses while Demchugdongrub was rebuilding his armed forces. In November 1936, Demchugdongrub presented Fu Zawaya with an ultimatum to surrender. when Fu responded that Demchugdongrub was merely a puppet of certain quarters, and requested that he submit to the authority of the Chiang Kai-shek's central government. Prince Des Mongolian and Manchurian armies launched another, more ambitious attack. This time Demchugdongrub's 15,000 soldiers were armed with Japanese weapons, supported by Japanese aircraft, and often led by Japanese officers. In anticipation of this attempt to take control of Suiyuan, Japanese spies destroyed a large supply depot in Datong and carried out other acts of sabotage. Jian Zishan placed his best troops and most able generals, including Zhao Chengsha and Yan's son-in-law Wang Jingguo, under the command of Fu Zawei. During the month of fighting that ensued, the army of Mengjiang suffered severe casualties. Fu's forces succeeded in occupying Bailing Miao on the 24th of November 1936, and was considering invading Chafar before he was warned by the Kwantung army that doing so would provoke an attack by the Japanese army. Demchugdongrub's forces repeatedly attempted to retake Bailing Miao, but this only provoked Fu into sending troops north, where he successfully seized the last of Demchugdongrub's bases in Suiyuan and virtually annihilated his army. After Japanese were found to be fighting in Demchugdongrub's army, Jian publicly accused Japan of aiding the invaders. Yan's victories in Suiyuan over Japanese-backed forces were praised by Chinese newspapers and magazines, other warlords and political leaders, and many students and other members of the Chinese public. Demchugdongrub withdrew to Chafar and again reconstructed his army with Japanese help. By the time that the Second Sino-Japanese War began, in July 1937, his army consisted of 20,000 men in 8 cavalry divisions. The forces under his command participated in Operation Chafar and the Battle of Taiyuan. When the Japanese and Mongol forces finally captured most of Suiyuan province, the Mengjiang United Autonomous Government was set up in 1939, with Demchugdongrub first being the vice-chairman, then the chairman. In 1941 he became chairman of the Mongolian Autonomous Federation. Downfall. After World War II and the collapse of the Federation, Demchugdongrub lived in Beijing for 4 years under the supervision of the Kuomintang government. Just before the founding of the People's Republic of China in August 1949, he managed to establish an autonomous government in the westernmost region of Inner Mongolia. In December, threatened by the Communist Army, Demchugdongrub fled to Mongolia and was at first welcomed there, but was later arrested by the People's Republic of Mongolia in the following February and deported to China in September, where he was charged with treason by the People's Republic of China. Under supervision, he wrote 9 memoirs and was pardoned 13 years later in April. After his release from jail, Demchugdongrub worked in an Inner Mongolian history museum in Hoot until his death at the age of 64.